Schaefer.
Yep.
Heath. Bunting.
Here.
Bannon. Gerwin. Engel. Slagle.
Here. Everybody was favored with a revised agenda, I assume? Yes? Yeah. Motion approved. Moved by Mr. Engel, second by Mr. Bannon. All those in favor, keep saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Great. Minutes. Davey has that look of.
I'm just waiting for Carolyn to make a motion.
Motion, thank you, David. Is there a second to that? Marty? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Great. Okay, Mike.
I think everybody knows, Farnsworth, in this year's budget, we allotted, I think it was $50,000 for the study, to determine what we should do in terms of moving forward on the H&E building because of the needs out there. And I guess at the time, we were just allocating enough money for that very preliminary study. Well, that's been done, and more actually, than what we planned on. And once we got to the point at the special board meeting where we talked about various questions that people had, concerns people had and everything, there was a vote taken to move forward with construction of a new building. Farnsworth, they had a slide that outlined their process. The next process, once we determined a new building was the direction, was what they referred to as a schematic design. I think you've all got copies of the proposal. It's a pretty detailed proposal, short of final design for requesting bids and construction documents, that sort of thing. Neil Finland's here from Farnsworth, if there are questions about that. The reason it's at finance, we budgeted $50,000, and I mean that work that was intended for has been completed, but to continue to move forward, the total of the schematic proposal that you have is $94,550. Well, that's not in this year's budget. But to move forward, finance needs to approve going above budgets, what it amounts to. So with that, I don't know if there are questions about the schematic proposal. If so, Neil's here and can better answer those questions than I can. And we did, Neil and the architect, Dave Benson, were here at the property committee meeting, and there were a few questions, but I think most of those were addressed.
You just said 94.5.
And a lot of the questions, quite honestly, come up in terms of the square footage. Is this set in concrete? It's questions that will be answered down the road with final design. These are very preliminary, but it's a lot of the, I call it engineering work that goes along with, the site, the preliminary for the site development, that sort of thing, as well as the actual building design. It's really more the things surrounding the building and the property that'll let them move forward with a final design. So, with that, sure. I guess I make a motion that we approve the money for the proposal.
From the construction company.
Yeah.
Is there a second to that?
Do you have a dollar figure?
94,550. That's the total.
45,550 above.
Yeah, 45,550 above.
Yeah. Sir. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. There's a second by Dave. Any more discussion or questions?
Yes. So we're paying $95,000 just to basically design a building that somebody else is going to build, or who's building this?
Farnsworth doesn't build buildings.
Right.
I mean, if you look at that proposal, it's, and I'll let Neil explain more in detail, It's not a final design.
Okay.
When we get that, then we go out for bids for construction.
I just don't see what we're getting for 95,000.
Sure. Well, as Mike said, I think this is the logical next step. And what we're trying to do is, again, go back and meet with staff to identify the uses, the space requirements, determine some of the things we talked about on Monday night. Had to do with some of maybe the new technology that might be available that might allow us to even cut down the size of the building. Record storage, for instance, things such as that. A lot of those technologies will be taken into consideration when we look at just what you need and the functionality of it. What we're really trying to get to is work that would be used for the final design. So this is not wasted by any means, but it's the next step to determine just what's necessary, no more, no less, and then determine, I think the biggest item is with regard to the cost. What it's really going to cost for that square footage. I'm the civil engineer. Dave Burnison was here, as Mike mentioned, on Monday night. And, Dave had kind of gone into some of the more workings with the building. My own work would involve a preliminary layout of the building, just where it's sited, the parking lot, some of the utilities, making sure that it fits and functions and those kind of things. So it's just necessary for you to move forward, and then you make your decisions accordingly for size and function.
I'll be honest with this, until I had the conversations with these folks, it kind of caught me off guard. We talked about a schematic, okay, fine. I guess I didn't even realize what it was. But every other capital building project, government-wise, that I've been involved in, this is kind of a step before. Normally, you go out and hire an architect, you say, here's what we want, and they design it, and they charge you for that. And all of this other work that goes along outside of the building, to complement the building, is part of the design. It's one big bundle, and then you go out, you get bids, and you build it. So it's sort of like taking the first step of the design phase before you get to final design, to make sure that it's exactly what you want and no more than what you want. So it's just a different process.
How would it be different from, if it's all systems go, then how would it be different from if we just did a design, a biddable design? It just seems like like we've already had 2 studies of space needs. Then we've had the schematic for the 22,000. Now this is another intermediate step that is still not biddable, still not a hard number, still not a hard plan. I mean, we're not building a hospital complex here. It's not
Actually,
that big of a building, so why not?
I think the site, actually it is a hard plan. What it's not, or what it stops short of, Carolyn, is construction plans. Where you would hand them to the prospective bidders and have them take it from there. We don't want to leap into that without really knowing what's necessary. And we're not so sure, well, we don't believe that we do know what's necessary. What size you need. Again, I think we've got to spend a lot of time going back through those studies that you'd mentioned, and then we also need to go ahead and spend some time with staff to just find out what those offices look like, what kind of space requirements are there. I don't think we want to take off on construction plans without being certain of what's necessary in the building and how the building functions. And I know you spent some time with Dave, and that's what I gleaned out of that.
Well, in addition to that, this work also entails more than just the building. We talked the other day about the top of it.
Right.
And because it's flatland, drainage is not as simple as it might seem. Sewers, all the utilities. where they're at, what it's gonna take to connect. So some of that stuff that normally would get done, I guess, with, if you just did a full design ready to go to documents. So it's not wasted work, it's just work that you would pay for.
That didn't,
Like-
wasn't done in the first go around.
Yeah.
So are you concerned that the $6 million estimate may not be high enough?
Concerned that the $6 million estimate may not be exact.
Well,
Yeah,
sure,
and
it's
what
not
we're trying-
exact,
What
but,
we're trying to zero in on just what that cost is. And of course, that cost is dependent upon size and some of the amenities. You know, the other thing that this would start to identify is, you know, what level of construction you're looking for. One of the things we talked about on Monday night, as an example, had to do with the storm shelter. And there were a couple of really good questions, and I'll summarize those, if that's all right.
Yeah,
One of them had to do with the storm shelter, and what's in the proposal says that it's not a FEMA-rated storm shelter. And, you know, the question was, well, should it be? And we kind of batted that back and forth. And, you know, we've done storm shelters, and we're doing them all over, like for schools and different facilities. And rarely do we put in a FEMA-rated shelter. We feel what we put in, they're concrete, they're fortified, and those function just fine. But where we ended up with that was, and where we would with this study, is, okay, if we did go to a FEMA, what more is that going to involve structurally, or in the foundation Dave's talking about? And it always comes down to cost. You know, should we get that FEMA certification on there, or is it worth it? You know, what's the additional cost to do that? That's one of the things that would be identified in this. So I don't know if we're here tonight, ready for you folks to say, we really want a FEMA-rated shelter, because we haven't told you what that might involve. The other discussion had to do, and Darrell had a really good question about the topographic survey. And the line item that we've got in here, and we'll do that on a time and material basis so that we don't do any more than we have to in that survey work. What was in there that I learned later is we've got a boundary survey on top of the topographic work as well. I don't know that we don't necessarily do a boundary survey, so we want to go ahead and be fair, make sure that we talk with you as we go through this to see if you want a boundary or not. When you own the adjacent properties, I don't really feel that it's necessary, so that's why we wanted to give that as an option. So I don't know that we've really identified all the detail, you know, certainly the size. I think we would do you a disservice if we move forward with what we would be guessing at as a design and miss the mark. Make it too large, make it maybe outdated by the time we got it done, talking about the storage technology and whether we do that or not. I think this is the logical next step to take, because it's not wasted money. In fact, that's what we're trying to avoid, is that we wouldn't move forward on a guess. And I'm not trying to be harsh, but,
No,
we would really be
I
trying to
actually,
encourage.
you know, I actually agree with you, but I have a different point of view, which I'd like to share with my fellow committee members. That is that we're kind of creeping up on this project without really knowing if we for sure want to or need to do it. So far, the feedback that I've had from constituents has been, don't build it, we don't need it. And that is my personal opinion after touring the facility, speaking to people who work there, speaking to the managers. However, if the decision were made to go forward with it, I would prefer to do that after we have consulted. I would like that decision to be made by the people. I think it should be on the ballot this fall, and then the funds can be budgeted for the 2019 budget year, and it can take place in an orderly manner. We know it's going to be, I think it's going to be at least $5 million, so we know that. I would rather see the money help to lower our taxes. If that's not what people want to do, I think the quality of care at that facility is much more dependent on people than buildings. And that's where the investment should be, is in the people. That's my 2 cents. For $6 million, obviously.
I have a question too. The way we're doing it this time with Farnsworth is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. But basically, once you get to the point of construction documents, when you're ready to move into that, you enter into the AIA agreement, right, for architectural services, and that's what we'll do here. And so the AIA agreement is based off of what you've determined to be a pretty realistic cost for the actual building, and it's percentage based. So, is that all correct so
Yes,
far?
it is.
Okay, and so, everything that we've done in the past, we've done letters of intent, so we haven't entered into agreements on these things. We've had letters of intent to enter into these phases of documents with a not to exceed number of X. These things, from what we've seen in the past, what we're paying for these come off of what the overall architectural agreement ends up being when we enter into the AIA agreement. Is that the same case here?
It is, yeah, that's what I say, this is not wasted work, it's part of that whole
Credit
process.
against your final bill. We'll credit this right against your final bill. That's the kind of folks we are.
What would be the cost of final, the final bill?
I think, if I heard Dave correctly, this is about 20% of what the full effort would be.
Yeah,
Right.
and usually it's a flat percentage of what the anticipated cost is, right?
Yeah, it-
For
yeah, it is
architectural?
percent, yeah.
Right, and then 6 million is important, and I think aside from this issue, and we'll leave it at that, we'll vote here real quick, but it's incumbent upon us, that square footage, which is why there's the uncertainty, really need to, and it's incumbent upon, I guess, finance, property, and really the health folks, to take a long, honest look in the mirror and look at those funding sources, and look at the direction of our state, look at the direction of the federal government. Really? Are we really gonna be doing all that stuff in 5 years?
And I've had those conversations with them and Neil.
Because are those services gonna be picked up by Livingston County if they're not provided by federal and state grants?
And
Thank you.
I totally agree, and we've made it clear to make sure
Right, and I know that's a
we
different.
know other offices could do it in there and everything, but to
Right,
minimize
right,
what we do initially in the design. And while I disagree with the fact that we could continue to function for long-term in that facility
No, I know.
because of its physical
Different
condition,
Right.
therefore we need to move forward. And this is the next logical step.
We're ready for a vote?
I got one question. When we built these other buildings, the courthouse and the jail, do we have the same type of, do we have a schematic design done for them buildings as well? So there's nothing different about this than what we've done in the.
And neither of those were Farnsworth buildings, either, for what that's worth.
No, but it's a normal process that we're just not.
And there's another step in between too, which is design development, so, correct?
We're just trying to refine, what this should be. And Tim, we did talk a little bit about that on Monday night, about, what's the future look like, with services, and I think all that goes into.
And that's a tricky, in your position, it's not your problem to ask that, it is our problem to ask that, and I know what those guys told you, but boy, I don't know.
That can change with the wind though, I mean, all of them.
I'd say the chances of expansion are 0. Okay, so we know we're probably gonna be going backward, if treading water or going backward, so maybe you wanna.
Marty and I were talking the other day about that very issue. And I know during Marty's tenure as chairman, and I think maybe a year or two before that, when Bill Fairfield was chairman, we've always had this on our goals and that sort of thing. And I'll admit, I was part of that. It was always like, well, maybe we ought to wait another year and see what the state's going to do.
Right, and that's what you
And that's part of the reason this thing is.
Let's go see what happens if
Well,
we
the parks,
rebuild. It's just been
This is hard to do, because they do wonderful work. no dispute, but
Yeah.
are we gonna pick up the tab if somebody else isn't picking up the tab?
I don't think that's ever been used yet.
Right. So, thank you. Ready to vote?
Question first.
Tim, or go ahead, you're next. You were,
What's the purpose of the operating cost? Is that to evaluate compared to current building? Would we ever say let's not build this because we're not gonna own
Here
it?
you go, I think where we probably got a lot of bad taste in our mouth is we probably didn't study that close enough in the courthouse. And while this is a much different type and smaller building, I wanna be able to say with a straight face that, yes, we studied that. We've minimized the surprises. There will always be surprises, but at least we did our darndest to say, you know, we went in eyes open. We knew we're not gonna pick up 5 janitors to get the damn thing clean.
Right.
Or if we do, we know it up front.
And then the vote here to approve it or not, this is putting it into the lump of all the capital requests that will then get decided on as we finalize the budget? Or is this saying this is going on the budget?
This cost here.
This is paying now, this is.
This is just coming out of that construction thing now, so this isn't, no, this is just something we had countered. and we
Okay.
Frequently do.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Sir,
how much of this $94,000 is figuring out how much space we need? Because, I mean, you kind of alluded to that you're going to have to figure out what kind of space we need, which I'm already thinking, we had a study done that, and you did a preliminary already with the preliminary drawing that had the numbers and that on it.
I don't know that I can answer that.
I don't know,
Breakdown. Yeah,
I read through the document, I don't think that is segregated that way.
our
Well, I mean,
could answer that.
honestly, I mean, who's deciding here on how much space we need? Is it Melinda? Is it our property committee, or what? I mean,
Yes.
okay, well then,
Bill,
no
we've talked
offense,
about
hey,
this
I'm
several
talking,
times.
do we need to pay him $94,000? Don't take this offensively, to, figure out how much space we need? I
No,
mean,
we need to pay them $94,000 to do all of the things that are in this proposal, which includes
figuring out how much space we need.
Design, which will determine square footage. But will Melinda and Chris be involved? Absolutely.
After
Well,
we pay $94,000.
No. They'll be,
Wait a minute,
They'll
you're
be
voting here
involved in those
you're voting here
discussions
right
as
now
well
to
as the
spend
board.
$94,000, right?
I'm sorry?
You're voting right now to spend about $94,000.
actually 45.
Actually, 45.
Oh, okay, from what we,
In
Yeah.
addition to what we.
in addition to the
But as far as-
17.5
Addition
we've
to
already
the
done.
50.
All the decisions that have to do with the building. Chris and Melinda will be involved, the committee, however the chairman wants to structure, whether it's a subcommittee and ultimately the board.
Haven't we done that already?
No. The
What
drawing
was
that-
the preliminary drawing that you guys did?
there-
that had numbers and that on it?
There was been a drawing put up several times that was based on Melinda and Chris identifying the current programs, and the current staffing and that sort of thing. It was never intended to be a final design.
So why do we need, I hate saying this, why do we need this company to say what we don't need or do need?
Well,
I mean, we have committees that.
I'm not an architect. I'm not.
Well, neither am I, but he had a thing there, and all we gotta do is sit there and go, well, Melinda, why do you need 500 square feet for this? Or do we just not do that?
I think what you're doing here, and I think because it's presented in a separate contract, it's maybe not coming off this way, but basically what you're doing is you're hiring an architect to design your building and ultimately give you construction documents. And along the way, there's just phases to get there. And it's about defining the project and what all you want in there. And there's lots of people that will be involved in those decisions, from the users, employees, managers, the committee, the board. Those types of things will happen. But it's because you have this separate agreement that you're questioning, how is this separate? But it's really not. It's all part of the overall agreement for architectural services. It's just because you haven't defined exactly or have a better idea of how much the building is gonna cost you. And because those services are percentage based, you need to get further down through the process in order to find that out.
I understand the process. I mean, right now, you're paying people $45 an hour or whatever for a meeting, whereas you're paying him probably a lot more than. I'm just saying, why can't a committee of us,
You know how to design a building?
I'm not saying design a building, I'm saying what we need. Now, if we come to you to say, hey, we need exactly this, the 19,000 that they agreed on, or that was in your preliminary,
You've got to
then
start determining where the building is going to be, where the best location for the building
I
is
think
going
we
to be.
did that already.
Where these systems are gonna run. where
I
all the
understand that, all that
electricity-
part, Alina.
That's all part of this.
I know,
That's all
I
part of
understand
this.
that, all that part. I know that part, from that part on. you
need
need
all
to-
the measurements.
No, I understand, I told you I understand that. I know that part has to happen. I mean, that comes into construction and all that, when you design it.
That's
Why
what-
can't we figure out what we need first?
You
Yeah.
did that. I mean, you.
Then why are we paying him again to do it?
Let me try.
Can you,
Yeah, let me try one.
Okay.
To see if I can't do a better job than I just did. I think the sessions with the staff is a very, very small part of that $90-some thousand. Because as I go through the breakdown here, for instance, of the $94,550, just over $38,000 is in architecture. And that's to start to put the building together, in essence, a preliminary design. After we figure out how big, with those sessions, trying to figure out the square footage. The structural engineering is $8,000. The mechanical, electrical, plumbing involvement here to do that preliminary design, to keep going, if you keep going, is a little over $27,000. Those figures alone total $73,000 just to start to design the building.
that's based on the 19,000 we originally kind of had talked about in your original.
Well, if you remember, and I sat through some of those sessions, not all of them, not only did we look at what a new building might look like just on a square footage basis, but we also looked at the old building, looked at the functionality of the things. Yeah, we looked at, costs, backwards and forwards.
We'd be at 94,550 if we designed an 8,000 square foot building. We'd be at this stage. We'd be at 94,550 if we had a 22,000 square foot building
I see
at
what
this
you're saying.
stage.
Yeah.
Okay, these are kind of embedded procedural costs into these endeavors. This isn't a function of, well, it's 19,000 square feet, you're gonna pay $94,000. No. It's almost, this aspect of things is almost a fixed cost. Okay, if you're gonna move that far ahead, you're gonna pay that much.
Well, anytime you build a building of this size for the functionality, you've gotta hire an or architectural firm. Because we don't have that expertise. We don't know where technology to get to the building and how it's supposed to be run, where it's supposed to be placed. All the things that are the intricacies of trying to design a building. And when you decide to build a building, whether it be a house or whatever, there's built-in costs that you have to absorb. And we knew there was gonna be engineering costs in this, because when we get done, we want a building that's gonna be a building that we're gonna be proud of. It's gonna last a long time. It's gonna be used well by the people out there and who they serve. This is just a step to get us there. It's not foolish money being spent, it's wise money that has to be spent. When we started talking, we've talked about this building for 6 or 7 years. We decide, every time we have a planning session, it's been in our long-term plans. Boards have talked about it for years. Now we're ready to do something. And it's gonna come with a cost.
That's fine. Why do you consider that? I understand what he has to do. he has to design the building, he has to do this. But when I built my house, I didn't say, go to a person like him and say, design my house. I don't know what I want in it. I came up there with, I need a 1,500 or whatever square foot house. I want this bedrooms, 2 baths and that. Now, we've already done studies to find out what Melinda wanted. Now, obviously, he did the study before and talked to them, and they came up with the 19,000 square feet. So, I mean, are we just going through that step again?
It's just the procedure, the steps that
The
you have to go
19,000
through
is set in here
Yeah. So why did we pay for the first one?
to get the
to
19,000.
get to this step.
It's like saying, just as an example.
Don't worry about it.
You said that you want a 3-bedroom house. You know that you want a 3-bedroom house, you want 1 bath, you want whatever. And then they design it and they get to where they've already completed the construction documents and you say, that's not how I wanted that. That's not enough room to fit my bedroom and my dresser and my television. It's just defining what's really needed.
Am I misunderstanding and you're not gonna be, you already have how many square feet this is? Or what's going where, or?
You don't know yet for
Here's some
sure.
adjustment on that, yeah.
That's what's going,
I think
that's what this
part of the
determines.
reason we're here is because there's some sticker shock when you get the preliminary stuff, okay? And doing some rethink, I think.
Big time.
I'm candid about it, we're doing some rethink on the size and the cost and stuff, because it was pricey. I know, speaking for me, yeah, I thought that was too much. I still think that's too much. So, that's, in my personal case, I'm at.
I think a lot of our job will be to see if we can minimize it.
Right.
You know, based, I'm sorry, I keep going back to the technology thing, or even programs for that matter. But, you know, we're working for you. We've got to make sure that this thing is, as I mentioned before, no more than what it needs to be. Yeah.
So that one will be mad. If you moved in and there's been screw ups.
Right, if we overdo this,
You know,
it'll be shame on us.
Yeah,
If
then
we-
we're gonna come looking for you.
Yeah, we understand that. I mean, that,
You know, you charge us, and it's what we want,
and by the same token, if we undershoot it, you know, we gotta hit the sweet spot. And that's what we're trying to get to with the preliminary work.
Super quick technical questions about this document.
Sure.
So the optional scope of service to identify potential operating costs for the new building is included, right? It's not optional, it's included? I don't know why it says
You'll have to
optional.
Yeah.
Just say it's included. And I think that's genius and it's been a big problem in the past. And it's not gonna be a LEED certified building, right?
Well, you don't want that?
No. There's a statement in here that they're gonna be selecting mechanical systems based,
Based on simplicity.
to provide easy operation and reasonable energy performance. Reasonable is a squishy.
Well, and part of that's back to the operating cost analysis, you know, to make sure that.
Give us options, is that what you're trying to do?
It won't be a coal-fired furnace.
There's on page 3, there's a reference to bullet point, confirm need for lift station. Do we currently have a lift station out there? Is this that we really
This is
need
back to the
one?
utility, you know, on Monday night we talked
Probably
about.
something to do with the city too.
And I was there, but I didn't quite understand, are we saying it's a new thing, and
I
is it a
think there's one
maybe?
on the east end, but I don't think it services that property, but that's.
So we might need a whole new lift station if we build a new building, is that how I read this?
I would be surprised, but we want to make sure that there aren't any surprises. So that's part of the piping and the analysis of the
Says
the,
confirm
topographic
need,
survey.
do you wanna say
Or lack
confirm
thereof.
lack of need?
Confirm
Okay, because confirm
need or
need
lack
sounds
thereof.
like.
Or roll it out, yeah.
Page 3 on paragraph A under estimate of operating costs, there's a long list of things that aren't gonna be discussed or included. One of them is insurance, and that caught my eye. The rest of them all made sense to me. That's all stuff about just how we run a building, you can't really avoid, you know, it's probably gonna be about the same in most of those cases, but insurance caught my eye because sometimes insuring a new building is more expensive than an old building, depending on what.
Sure,
we're
you put in
talking
there,
about.
sure.
Right, so is that something that maybe we could get a handle on, so that we're not surprised by that?
you would probably want to, when you get to the point where you have final plans, you probably want to submit those to your insurer and say, what's this gonna cost? And if you have it, before you say, go ahead and do it, if you wanna, if there's something on there, you wanna back off, like I would assume for an insurer, a FEMA certified thing is cheaper to insure than a non-FEMA certified thing. Now, you weigh that against the cost of annual premiums versus the upfront cost of doing a FEMA certified thing, right?
How much do we have it insured for now? Do we have it for replacement or for value?
I can't answer that, ma'am.
I think they're value.
That could be sticker shock too. And last but not least, I confirmed with Alina that this chart, there's no more to it. There's an arrow here, but that just means go to the end of 2019 with construction
Yeah, well, and then,
and probably beyond, or is it?
There is another page.
Oh, there is another
But
one?
I don't know, did it get in the?
No, I did not get that other page.
that
Okay.
is, that's the construction street.
All right, so this is the page, I didn't, no, that looks the same. This is the new page. All right, so there's a page missing from the packet. I'd like to get that page.
See it in electronics, right?
You can see it in the electronic? I guess it is in there.
Maybe it is, I
can see
it
it.
just didn't print out.
It goes from there.
So it just kind of goes on into 2020 and beyond.
We'll say that. I thought that was in the packet.
Okay, maybe it just didn't print out for some reason.
Yeah.
And then the last question, see how quick I'm going? Has this been reviewed by the state's attorney
It is not, but it will be before it's approved.
on Thursday? Okay. That's all I had. I'm still gonna vote against it, but, those are things that if it goes forward need to be.
Got a motion, a second, a great discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
I heard two, did you hear more?
I'd like a roll call vote.
Well, okay, we'll do that. Fire away, Emily.
Schaefer,
Yep.
Heath,
Yes.
Bunting,
Yes.
Bannon,
Yes.
Gerwin,
No.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Slagle.
No.
The budget hawks' talons are out. We love
Your
it.
ears are good, Mr. Chairman.
I thought so, I thought.
I didn't have any doubt, but I wanted the names and for the record.
I suspected
Robert's
that as
rules.
well. I suspected that as well.
Robert's
Our
rules.
little recorder. Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Thank you very
One,
much.
before you,
And I'll
can I
be
ask one more question on that, that's sort of higher level?
Oh,
What's the process? How does this work as this goes forward? Like, if you make the plans and then we decide to go forward with the 6 million or 5 million, does the individual systems get bid out to people, or does the whole building get bid out to all kinds of people that wanna build the whole thing, or how does that work?
We gotta have that discussion. Basically, do you wanna use a general contractor, a construction manager? I have personal opinion, and I think most people may, based on past experience, but that will be a matter of discussion. We've had those discussions. There's nothing here that locks that in, John. I guess is the right answer. Yeah.
Assuming it will be a general contractor with subcontractors.
Yes, that's one option. You could add into that equation a construction manager.
I think that's actually, that's a very good question. And that will get an answer as we go on.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
all right.
You know, Joe Kennedy looking glasses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, look forward to
Appreciate
it.
it.
Thanks, Neil.
Take care.
Leanne! How you doing?
Talk to you, yeah.
Well, I'm back again asking to hire again my full-time position. I did last board meeting, when I presented the last 6 months, I told you I thought I was in a position where the next time somebody left, I'd be able to not replace that person. She left. And we've been going the last several months without her. it's not going well. The e-filing, court automation, it's not any easier. It's not making less work. Right now, it's more work. And I have another clerk that is resigning and is done the 25th of this month. So on my civil division, I'll be working back down to 2 clerks. So my request is that I please be able to get back to full staff, and hopefully I can get through like a whole year with having somebody in, you know, to cover all these positions, because the girls, it's hard on them. It's really hard on them, and with the e-filing, it is a lot more work. We've been having attorneys calling, wanting to know why these aren't processed yet, and it's just very time consuming. The civil clerks also go up into the courtroom. They take turns, they take a time, and they go up in the courtroom. So that takes time away from them too. So I just really wish I could get back up to staff and get everybody trained so that we can move forward, and hopefully once the e-filing is new on our end, but it's also new on the filers, on attorneys and the pro se people. And that's taking more time too with the pro se people, because we have to stop what we're doing, processing, to help them file. You know, they don't know what they're doing, so I would hope you would
So
approve.
you want 2 or 1?
Well, I have one that's leaving the 25th of this month, and I know I can replace that one because that
Okay,
one.
so, okay.
But I'm asking
Two.
for an additional one to replace the one that quit several months ago through attrition.
Budget impact,
Well, I'm asking 23,331 more than what, in the salary line, than what you had requested.
For the
you mean for
remainder,
next year or for this
I was
year?
gonna say, for the remainder of this year?
Oh, well, no, I'm sorry, I just figured out for next year.
We actually.
Well, but I was kinda covered for this year.
Oh,
I'm just saying, the salary's in there this year.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Had that employee
But-
stayed, I think I would have been covered for
but
this
we
year.
reduced the allocation based on the assumption she would reduce.
Right, and she lost a part-time employee too in the.
No, I'm not questioning that, I just,
And I think that salary for that one was not in with the salary, it was kinda set aside so that I wouldn't, so it wasn't there, you know.
It's in the miscellaneous line item,
Yeah.
not in her budget, and so we'll need direction for 2019 where you would like those funding to let that.
that was done because we assumed.
Because we were working towards attrition, so the officials did not have authority to do it without approval.
Right.
And I'd like to add too that with the raise in the document storage fund and the court automation fee, I am turning over more money at the end of the year. Last year, well, this year will be $10,000 I'm turning over through court automation, and $7,500 in document storage, which is $17,500 more than what we transferred over previous years. So, I mean, you're getting more, we're collecting more money for it too, so if I transfer that over to you too, that helps some too. I don't know if you want to consider that, but.
So we reduced the staffing level of the office through the early retirement, right?
It was
No?
part of, no, she
Okay.
did have the reduction, but then she sought approval and you increased it back up, so if she's authorized to hire this person, she'll be at the same staffing level that, prior to any of that happening,
And that's until the next one leaves, right?
whatever you guys decide,
Then it'll be another hole.
whatever you guys decide.
It's part of the stress that you haven't been able to hold on to somebody who's fully trained.
Well, that's part of it too, yes, because it's not a job that you can just train in a couple of weeks, couple of months. There's always something new, and with the e-filing, this is on the civil division too. I'm not very versed in the civil division, that's not my, I know the criminal side better, so I can help that side better, but I'm learning, I'm trying to learn the civil side now too, because I'm gonna have to start working in there to do that. And a lot of it is now with this e-filing. It is very time consuming. The people file into the state system. We get into the computer and we look at that. And we have to go through all those documents to decide whether we can accept it or reject it. Some of those filings are very lengthy, and we have to make sure there's nothing confidential in it. You know, we have to, you know, make sure it's signed confidential. If they don't mark it confidential, we have to make sure it is. Because this is going out for anybody to concede. So we accept it from that position. And then once that is accepted, it goes into our case management system, which is a lapse in time. It's not instant. We have to wait for it to hit our case management system. If it's a new case, then we process it in this one part. Okay, we process it, we get a case number, shoots it back to the person that's filing. And then after that's done, then we have to wait it to get to another part of our court system to process it into the file. It will do the docket entries in that too. So, and then we have to print it and put it in file.
You're printing it?
Yes, we are still printing it. Our official records are still paper. We haven't gotten to the point where it's going to be, where it's electronic. We're working towards it, but some of the judges want that paper.
The attorneys have to digitize everything now.
Right.
And pay a fee to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just flabbergasted.
But you know, it's very time consuming. I worked on a case, on some filings yesterday. It took me all afternoon, and I stayed late last night, well, before I came to the board meeting last night, working on it. It's just very time consuming, and then when you're working on that, but then you got people coming in, and the phone calls, and you know, it's just, and there's only 3 girls in that division, where there was 4 before, 4, and 2 of the girls that were in that division were my experience that knew the jobs to begin with, the basic job, and they retired. So now we've got new people coming in that's learning about the cases themselves and what the documents that are being filed and how to know whether they're acceptable or not. So, and it's not something that can be just learned in a couple weeks. There's a lot of different variations and different case types to learn.
You talk about, are the majority of the attorneys using e-filing, I assume?
Everyone has to, it's state mandate.
Oh, okay, well, that's good.
As of January
The
1st.
state always knows better.
This is not how it was advertised.
But you also talk, you have a term for it to escape me, people that are not using attorneys.
Pro se,
Pro se.
for yourself.
So you're having to basically do the work for them. Because I know if I come in and want to do that.
We're trying not to. We have 2 computers there accessible for the public because we have to. We have to. And there are some people that come in and we'll get them started, but then there's always questions and sometimes they do want us to do it for them, which we can't, but I mean,
This is what
and it is
we
a
talked about
service
this
that
like
wishes-
2 years ago, and I knew this was coming. I was like, this is gonna be a.
It seems to me that if I come in and it's nice you provide me a computer and I can do it, that's fine, but if I'm gonna take your people's time, there ought to be a fee involved.
Right.
Rather than paying an attorney.
but we can't charge a fee for that. That's our service, we're public servants, we have to, just like if they file.
I understand the argument.
If they're coming in to file a pro se, why do you have to answer anything?
Because you have that bottleneck at your computer.
If they would come in, previously, if they came over with the paper,
Yeah.
the paper documents, we'd look it over and see, make sure that everything's signed and the heading's correct, they're filing it in the right county, right case type. We stamp it, and we take the fee, their money fee, and then we'll put it on our desk and process it now, or if we have something else we're working on, we'll get to that and we'll file it. Well, now, and then they walk out with their copies. Well, this way with the e-filing, they're processing it through the computer. They're waiting for us to go through it to accept it. And that takes time, you know, it takes time for us to review it.
Can't they go on down the road and you do whatever you have to do to accept it? And
Well, they can file it from home. They can
Yeah,
file it from anywhere.
Attorneys don't wait for you, we just, I mean, you don't hang around waiting, you email it and
Oh, yeah,
and
anybody.
it comes
can-
back.
Yeah, they just, the pro se people that come in, they, you know, sit at the computer and do it, and then we'll tell them they'll have to watch for an email to see if it's accepted or rejected. If it's rejected, we send them a comment as to why it's rejected. They can fix it and then refile it. But it's just very time consuming, and the pro se people.
No, I understand, and I guess I have a problem with, I understand your public service, but, you know.
Yeah, it'd
I
be
mean,
nice
you
if we
have
could
a
charge them.
duty to help them figure out the system, but not do the work.
Right,
Just
we'll
how it-
tell them where to go, and a
And
lot
they
of
may
times.
file something that's not too great.
Right, and then they don't know how to file the documents. There's like, you have
How many do you have doing this?
Yeah, I just.
How many people are actually filing pro se in a week, let's say?
I can't,
Less than 10?
no,
More than
probably more
20?
than 10. That come in the office though, maybe not.
Well, those are the ones who are your,
Well, but then we have, the, orders of protection, which are exempt.
Right,
They
but-
can file an exemption and
Sure.
then,
but how many pro se people would you say you have in a week? Just to, you know, so it's more than 10, less than 50, I take it,
oh, yeah.
less than
Yeah, more
20?
than 10, I don't,
So
it
maybe
varies,
50.
and it varies
Okay.
from week to week.
I know in some of the bigger places, you know, where there's more terminals or more people, I don't know, whatever, anyway, they're hiring people to assist the pro se plaintiffs, you know, informally, to help them through the system, but we probably don't have enough for people to do, we don't have that many people that you would need somebody dedicated to that.
Can lawyers just go and show up and do it pro bono?
That would be nice, but sometimes lawyers don't even know how to do it.
Just like farmers give us free food.
At any rate, then thank you for that. It sounds like, from where you sit and what you've seen in your years working there, that we're whistling Dixie if we ever think we're gonna get any attrition.
Right now, yes. I don't see it. I don't see it
You just
yet.
described a
Well, and in
situation where
fact-
not only you're not getting less, you're getting more.
Right.
And until we get artificial intelligence to do the scanning of these things,
Well, and I think once.
the lawyers will accept
once-
and not sue about.
Maybe after e-filing is more common and people are really know how to use it, it may get easier, but right now, it's just, it's not.
One of the goals or advantages of technology is to reduce manual labor, which translates to people. And it bothers me that we're mandated to use technology that doesn't help us with attrition.
That wasn't how it was advertised to the profession. Could I maybe meet with you and kind of see how it's working and,
Sure.
you know, maybe we can
Now you'll need,
brainstorm
now you'll
some
need two
ideas.
people. You need to hire two. Carolyn's coming in.
$25 a day, you could be over there and help people.
Yeah.
I just think there might be some
Volunteer.
possible
Is there, go ahead.
efficiencies, so.
Is there sentiment on?
Well, I don't know how we
requests?
can be more efficient. I mean, it takes,
I'd move
the thing of it is too, then, when somebody, when
Second.
one person starts reviewing that document, they're the only ones that's gonna see it. Because once they review it and accept it,
Right,
it's
right.
in their system. So when somebody calls back and says, hey, why was that rejected? I can't go in and look at it because it was that other clerk that did it.
Here's another idea, how about like a summer intern from the law school? We'll just talk about some ideas.
Well, that'd be nice, but then I'm spending time training them and then they're leaving and I'm still stuck with nobody.
Yeah.
Got a motion from Mike, second by Jason, to honor her request. Is there any more discussion?
This is to add
23,300, was it?
to the budget,
To next year's budget.
to next year's budget.
Yeah.
This year's being
Covered.
already covered.
Yep, yes ma'am.
Yes.
I had 23,131, is that correct, Leanne?
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry. Very good.
Precise, okay.
thank
All
you.
those, yeah, no, sorry, that just didn't work the way it should. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you.
All right, it's your show.
Okay. I already passed out to you the summary of the departmental request. And as you know, we've done things a little bit differently this year, and so all of the departments reported to their respective boards, committees with their requests, and we requested that those committees take the time to review those this month, whether they needed to schedule a special meeting or whatever they needed to do to get through them and forward them back to finance, either with a recommendation, without a recommendation, or however they wanted to do it. It was at their prerogative. To date, all of the committees have forwarded the items. You have the 3 different departments that are going to present to you today, and then the remaining departments are the highway, will present tomorrow to highway, and then your administrative team will report tomorrow to admin. Other than that, everything has been done, so we are really on track, a little bit more ahead of track than what we normally are. So our intent today for the Finance Committee is just to go through the departmental budget request. And then after that, we will give you all of the capital requests that have been received to date. And we will also give you where the request came in comparison to the allocation that was given to the departments. And what I would like for you to consider doing is to think about meeting prior to the next committee meeting, just because we are ahead of schedule. That will help us with timing and being more prepared for our next committee meeting, if we can get some of those answers. And what we're looking to do is identify, I'm assuming that you'll want all of the individuals that submitted capital to come to the next special meeting.
Yep.
And then anyone, will look at the overages for the allocations, and you can tell me there on those ones, which ones you would like to hear from. But for now, let's get through our departments that report to this committee and start with the assessor. Everybody got a copy of that, right? Okay.
Sure, shall we? I don't really know how you want me to start this.
Well, what's the variations from last year?
Okay.
Highs, lows, what's staring in the face?
Okay, so I can go through, I guess I should look at the
Processing
journal.
services?
I'll go through
Start
yours. I will do that. Data processing services are based on the quotes that or estimated quotes that I got from all of our vendors. I talked to DevNet, Vanguard, Sidwell, everybody that we do business with. DevNet proposed an estimated 5% increase in their costs from last year. And I got the breakdown from each individual vendor. Some of them increased slightly, so it's about $3,400 different from last year. The biggest one you're going to see is under printing and legal notices.
Yes.
And that is because 2019 is a quadrennial reassessment year.
Okay.
You will only see that jump every 4 years. By law, we have to publish and mail notices to every taxpayer in the county. That publication cost is set by statute, and it's 80 cents a parcel. It's very expensive to publish. Our association has been fighting that for years to try to get that reduced, but it's never going anywhere. But, so that will drop
The
off.
publishing costs?
The publication cost, the 80 cents a parcel. It was 120, they did get it reduced to 80 cents several years ago. We've been trying to get that reduced again, but.
Now, you say 80 cents a parcel.
Yes.
So every partial that you, huh?
But BARC.
So you don't pay the newspaper per column inch like most advertisers?
It's per property, per parcel.
Who do you
So
suppose
every
lobbied for
line,
that?
every,
Who do you suppose lobbied for that?
yeah, every line that has the parcel number, the owner name, and the assessed value is 80 cents a line.
So when there's
I
two
have to
newspapers
measure that,
left,
but I know what a column inch costs, and I think,
Yeah, it's crazy, but that's set in statute right now.
State statute?
Yes.
and even though there's only 3 or 4 newspapers left in the state.
Elections and rules.
Yes.
That will go away of itself, that will die its own death, but it won't help you this next year.
No, it will not. But we're just thankful that we only
That's
have
wild.
26,000 parcels as opposed
Another
to
rip.
75, 80,000 parcels
Oh,
as
yes.
some counties do
That's bad.
have to pay. So that's the big one, and that also, corresponds with our office supplies. I did bump that up because we have extra, costs involved in there. It's like, you know, because we use our copy machine to run those notices, so we
Sure.
have the ink costs, and we have the, costs involved with envelopes and whatnot, so.
I know, not a rip.
We put these on.
I'm gonna go major.
No.
If you
You
can
mean
figure out a way to
yeah.
get that reduced, I'll go for it. That's,
So for the printing and stuff, there's no services that could do that cheaper than we can do it in-house?
I don't think we can, we do it with our own staff, so we don't, we don't have that cost. I think it would cost us more to have it done.
Carolyn, I'll just make one comment about it. When we were located down the street because they were renovating the courthouse, we hired a service to print and mail our tax bills. And he guaranteed we'd save money. By the time we got through with all the bills, we had to reprint because they never reached the protected, you know, the property owner. We ended up spending more. So there, you probably could get a service to do it.
Oh, yeah, there's several
Yeah,
services
I'm
out
sure
there
they'll
that
do
do
the
do
same
it.
line. Oh, we'll see.
Yeah.
And the reason that these have to be printed in the newspaper is, they're mandated, but the idea behind it is so that people, everybody can see everybody's taxes, right? Yeah,
Well,
so,
yeah,
Which you can find online.
which you
Right,
could
and
find
we-
online, but
Right, and we do publish it online, and most counties do that as well, but they've not allowed us to do that solely yet.
we need to get Tom Bennett on it.
I've already made a note.
Mannequin.
I don't particularly, I guess, I think it's silliness because it is available, public information. But to pay a rate that's
And most people
more
are
than,
from-
more than any other commercial.
That's a lobbyist.
Correct.
Can we insist
They
they
did
put on
get-
card stock or something? Instead of newspaper?
For $1.80.
Well, we could reduce the font size. No,
tiny enough as it is.
it's still 80 cents a
It is
line.
pretty
Still
Yeah,
pretty
80 cents
tiny.
a line.
All right, well, that's a good explanation.
That is a good idea.
Unavoidable then.
Everything else pretty much
Mandated by
stayed the
state.
same.
Yeah. Thank you, still.
And I have no capital reviews.
How often does it run, do you know, in the paper?
Once.
It's just once.
Now that you've been there, a while, you were always there for a while, but now that you've been in charge for a while, how do you find things?
Say it again, sorry.
Now that you've been in charge for a while, how do you find things?
With our hands.
There you go.
Things are going well.
Good.
Would you like a formal motion?
Sure.
So moved.
Second.
Connie, second, Mr. Fanning, any other questions, sir?
Nope.
Nope, okay. All of them, thank you. All in favor, should say aye.
Aye.
Don't say no. Good job, thank you. Keep it up. Find more money. Without pay.
Can I make one little?
Sure,
side
please.
note?
Oh, you're done.
It's good news.
As long as, oh,
It's good news.
Thank you.
We are about halfway done with our change detection process. And I'm still pushing my assessors to keep going. My goal is to be done by the end of the year. We've already found $2 million in UAV from that project alone.
Oh, awesome.
It's been worth the time.
That is good.
$2 million in assessed value,
Yes.
not 2 million. Rough.
You can't, no, you can't. You
She
can't
said
spend-
good news, not great news.
It's good news.
No, I mean, that's,
Just to clarify.
Did you have somebody come and talk to you about doing fly load, somebody different?
We talked to Eagle Point, talking about doing the, obliques for the next one, which we're hoping to fly again in 2020, that's our goal, depending on budgets and whatnot, but, I would want to do the change detection again if possible at that point. We would like to go with, Eagle Point this next time.
Is that the one that came? Did you get it 2 weeks ago, maybe?
He's over there.
Okay.
I don't think he was here a couple weeks ago. Was it, can I just think of his name? It's got a
You
different
told me
name.
I couldn't,
It's got a different
I
name.
couldn't remember it, so.
Did you find a pocket of dramatically underassessed properties about 5 blocks south of here?
Should I have?
That would be about $1 million of that right there. All right, thank you so much.
Why should I be able to board review?
Because she's technically in charge of board of review, it's not,
Oh,
It's-
never mind.
yeah,
And the clerk.
Okay.
not board of appeals.
Christie.
Okay, I had passed out some more information to all of the members. Each year, I go ahead and I do a spreadsheet that shows exactly what comes out of my line items, and I increase or decrease it. For the county clerk department, for the non-salaried items, I left those the same. So, let's see. What we're looking for, hoping for, is that we will not be making quite as many trips sometime next year to Springfield for revenue stamps, because we're hoping to get on the system called MyDeck, which is kind of like when you fill your postage machines, and then we would report what we take in for the revenue stamps at the end of the month, like we do with our rental housing. We submit it to them through that, so we wouldn't have the need for the machine, because it's on its last leg. We're having issues with it, and we're in queue now with our recording company to get set up so that we can start doing it that way. But that would be a change for the attorneys and some people filing the P-tax forms and that too, and how they do that. So that would be the one change. But I did go ahead and I did left it all the same as I had, because we don't know for sure when that's gonna start. There's nothing big or major with the county clerk budget. Everything is the same on there. We go to the election department, that you'll see a reduction there overall, but that's because it's an odd year and there's only one election, a major election, which is a consolidated election, which will be for school boards and towns and villages and that. It's not township election at that point. So the primary judges pay, and that we had to figure, because in the primary there could be, but it's only for Pontiac, if they would happen to have one in South Streeter over in that area. So I did go ahead and put that money in. We have to plan in case there is a primary. So I figured that based on the number of judges that we had would need for each one, and did the expenses based on that amount. The general election would be in April 2nd, and that would be countywide. What I was looking at or hoping to do, and I did not include that in for the judges' pay, would be to increase their pay. Right now, the base is it's 115, and then if they attend the school and take the test and are certified, they get 135. But we don't usually use them unless we have them certified. They will go ahead and they come into our office if they can't make the trainings, and then we teach them at our office, and then we go ahead and pay them the full amount. What I put in here, I showed on the breakout what the pay would be right now at 135, and then in red underneath, I would like to see an increase up to $185 if we could. That would be the maximum. I know most of the counties around us and that are all looking at increasing their pay for their judges. McLean County and Champaign County went to $200 each pay or each election because of that in precinct voter registration. We don't have to have it in our precinct, but there's been a lot of other changes in that too, and things that the judges need to know. We're losing judges. If we had 5 judges in each precinct, that would be 230 judges. Right now at $135, that's $31,050. This is the beginning of the new 2-year term for judges too, so we're calling and we're getting ready to have confirmation of them too. We had that approved at the Election Rules and Legislation meeting. If we had full contingent, we have 230 judges. Right now, we have 160 that have confirmed that they want to come back for the 2-year term and work for us. We will also be getting student judges. We've had a great success with that. The judges that we've had long-term like that, and the kids enjoy it too, and they really learn a lot, and they're very helpful. They're really good. We need around 200 judges. So if
when
you
was the
know,
last time you actually had a full contingency of judges?
we've never had a full contingency.
I thought.
We never do. We're always working with that, and we just move them around. We might have the day before election somebody call in and said, I'm sick, I'm not going to be able to make it, I've fallen, I've hurt my arm or leg or something. So we're always dealing with that. So what happens then is we go ahead and we move where we try to have at least 3 judges in a precinct. And if we have more, we would appreciate that, because when you have an election maybe once a year, like next year, they forget about how to run the machines and what the information is, because there's a lot of technical stuff they need to know. The laws are constantly changing. So we try for 3, and that would be our minimum, but we have 4 and 5, and then when it gets closer to the election, if we start losing people, we start juggling people and moving them around from their home precincts and all over. So, but we're always looking for judges. And anymore, it seems like a lot of them won't stay for maybe a year or 2 years or one term. It's not like it used to be. Times have changed, and the wives and that are out. Everybody has jobs. So anyway, some of them had thought, it's a long day too. They have to be at the precinct at 5 o'clock in the morning, an hour at least before the polls open, so that they're ready to go at 6. The polls close at 7, and they're there at least an hour afterwards. So, and it depends on how smoothly it's going when they're closing up, if they're having an issue or not. Diane can attest to this, because she's helped for the past couple of years as an election judge for us and that too. And John's mom has been an election judge too. So, but what I put in here would be like the max of what I would ask for. I passed out another sheet to you that shows what the surrounding counties are. So a lot of them are looking at increases for this next budget year too. What I had on here, I've noted if they were 2017 rates. I did send out an email asking what they were paying now, and that's what came back to me, so, for the surrounding area. But basically, for the rest of the budget, in the elections, it's pretty much the same for the supplies and that. We have our maintenance for our election that we do with Liberty. That's quarterly payments, and that's not changed. Next year will be the third year for that maintenance agreement that we have with them for our elections and for our supplies and all of that they help us with. With the voter registration and fees, that went up. That's because in the odd years we have to have the purge of the voter registration system. And what that is we send out, by law, we have to send out voter registration cards to all the registered voters, and to kind of find out if they've moved or, you know, what. So, and then they'll respond back, and that helps us keep our records up to date. But we have to do that every 2 years. So that is, based on 23,000 registered voters, it's about 54 cents per voter to set that out, and then to set up, we have a service that does that, that sends them all out, and it goes through the post office then for their change of address to determine whether they've moved or if they're still at that same place. And then we have to follow up on that after it's done. In 2015, the purge cost $10,516. In 2017, it was about $12,616 to do it. So that's what I put in for this time. I'm not sure exactly, we don't know at this point how much it will be. So, I guess that's about the computer software. There were going to be some upgrades because July 1st we had the automatic voter registration through like the DMVs and some of the state institutions like the departments of public health, and that when someone comes in for aid or that comes in, they will be asked. Actually, they will be registered or filled out the application unless they've asked not to be in it, want to be excluded. So, and that comes in and it goes through the state, our Illinois voter registration system, which is the statewide voter registration system, and it'll come into our systems, and there's certain things that we will pull in off of that and get their registrations that way and then send out the cards to them. So at this point it doesn't look like there would be any increase with that, but we're not sure. We'll see how it goes as more of their departments get on that. So, but basically the increase for the judges is the main thing that would have a lasting or long-term impact on the budget in future years too.
You don't have to make that determination tonight. You can take it as part of the whole thing since it's coming to you anyway. You're the only committee that I wasn't really forcing to make a decision tonight. Christine, so you did not, I think I heard you say that you did not include the increased amount in your budget proposal.
No, I did not.
Okay.
So those numbers are based on the 135?
Yes. And I've got that on the sheet that I handed out to you.
Yeah.
Off
So
to the
it'd be
right
extra.
under the details, it shows what it would be, what it is, which is, and that, I have $9,000 on there because that includes what the judges, well, for the primary judges pay. Since there would be 10 precincts if we had one, that's the amount of judges we would need, and at $135 it'd be $6,750. But we also pay $10 for them to come and pick up the supplies, and $10 when they bring them back at the end of the night. The techs we would have, for that one, I'm not sure, it just depends. We usually would have somebody in the office run around and do that, so that may not be needed. What I include in here is the site rents and also for the kids at night that help the judges bring their supplies in. So that includes everything, but underneath then I have if the wages increased to $185 a day, it'd be like 10 precincts, 5 judges, be $9,250 plus those other amounts that I had on there.
Right, so the difference that they would be adding is $14,000 between the two different items. Did you happen to figure out what it would be on a bigger election year? The difference? So it's $14,000.
Yes, well, actually, I didn't have it for 2 big elections. What I figured at this point, under the general election judges pay, if the wages increased to $185 a day, it'd be 46 precincts at 5 judges, at $185 for $42,550. On a regular election, or at the current rates, it's $31,050.
So the
So
total
it'd be about-
increase is just over $51,000?
No.
Add those two together or not?
No, it'd be the
Oh, no,
difference.
but the difference
No, it's
between.
just the difference between the two.
Right, it'd be the difference between $31,050 and $42,550, which is about $11,000, so it'd probably be about $20,000, $22,000 a year increase.
And that's if they all showed up.
If they all show up, yes.
For 2 elections.
Yeah. Normally we have between 180 and maybe 200 if we're lucky.
So are you wanting to get the rate increase for this year?
No.
Oh,
This would
okay.
be in the budget year,
For the next budget.
for next FY19.
Right.
No, that's what I meant. You want that rate increase on 19.
Right.
So that's gonna be
Okay,
halfway
so this
through
is
their
not
2-year
gonna be-
term.
correct?
Yes, because a two-year term is 19 and 20. You have one election next year and two in 20.
It would be for their new term.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
These amounts would change, obviously.
Well, actually, no, well, yes, it would change, but as far as new term, the new term starts in November for them. But it would be the budget year, starting 2019, that increase would hopefully take place.
So they would have one election at 135, and then
In 2019.
the remainder of their 2-year term, it will be a bump.
Right, and it's supposed to be a 2-year term, but we don't have a lot that, a lot of them do it, but we take them if they can only work one election year, as long as they come in and take the training with us. We have to have people out there. We can't conduct the election without them at this point.
Well, it's about a 15-hour day.
Oh, it's a big day.
It is, and
$10 an hour would be
Jason's been a
$150.
judge too, and
Yeah.
we usually have, at the beginning of each 2-year term, they're mandated to take a training course and pass, take the test. We have an open book test and we go over it with them so that they know what they need to study up on or what they missed in that. Then we have refresher classes before each election because we have to have ourselves refreshed on it too, so that they know what they're doing again.
They get paid for
hopefully.
those.
No, they do not get paid for them.
So they're,
I do have treats here. We never had treats, but I have treats and pop and snacks and stuff like that for them, which has helped a lot.
their mileage is on their own.
Yes,
So we're getting a bargain in
yes,
there too.
I think we are.
Yeah. And they're giving up time.
And the last time there was an increase was 2009, I think it was.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget as presented, and we'll, as a sidebar, discuss the judge's pay for future.
That qualification, is there a second? Carolyn, any more discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
And thank you for the details. Yes?
Can I just ask Christie, the student judges, who is the pool that you draw from?
The pool?
Is it like high school,
It's
college?
high school, they have to be juniors or seniors.
Okay.
They have to have at least a 3-point grade average. And junior, seniors, and permission from their high school principal as well as their parents is a form they have to fill out. I work with civic teachers or whoever the contact is at the school.
Okay.
It's Mr. Calvin Chapin.
Yeah, Clark Chapman, yeah.
Charlie Chapin.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I
we
just
worked
wanted-
with him, and last year, he didn't have a lot, and a lot of them didn't want to do it, but they're gonna try something different this year. Hopefully we'll have more.
Looking at the figures provided by Christie, it looks like the average of those figures is $152 a day, just FYI. And understanding that some of them will probably be going up.
I was gonna say, didn't you say these were at least 1 year old?
Some of them on this sheet, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yes, some of them were the 27th, one of the ladies that I had emailed said she'd done kind of a little survey last year, and I wrote on here was 2017 rates and that. Otherwise, it's what they currently are doing, but like, as I said, those that told me that they were looking to increase, like Shelby County was looking to increase to $195, so. And if they do come and they don't take the test and aren't certified, they'd get $20 less. One other thing too is that the state does reimburse the county $45 for each judge.
And you said the last time it was raised was 2009?
2008 or 9, I forgot what it was. I had looked at it right before I come up, but I forgot what it was now.
So you wanna make it 40, so you pocket 5 per judge.
So it's $193,000 for elections for 1 year. I just want to be able to tell voters how much we spend to give them that, opportunity, that freedom. Yeah.
Whether they vote or not.
Yeah, whether we.
It has
They
to
stay
be
home.
It has to be done irregardless.
Still pay 'em.
We have to plan like they're all coming out, because if we don't,
Because it's important.
and we run out of ballots, it's not fun.
Just curious, Christie.
Yes.
You got 100 voters, how many ballots do you print? I mean,
Well, that's I don't have a crystal ball, but that's about what we have to do. Because what I have are the charts from like the last 2 elections prior to that, and we have what the voter turnout was. And then if it's like a primary, we have, okay, this is how many Democrats turned out, this is how many Republicans turned out, this is what, you know, on an average. Okay, how many of those do we think are gonna switch and pull a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot? So,
But I mean,
We-
you don't print a ballot for every registered voter.
no.
It's a percentage.
No,
Based on
what we
history.
look at is base, right, and then we usually try to do 70 to 80%, especially in the outer line ones, because we can't print ballots and get them out there fast enough, you know, without some voters may not be, but we do have, the touch screens, so that there's always a ballot there, just some people don't like to use them.
Right.
Especially with all the bad publicity and, I mean, with the hacking and all this stuff that's been going on, and that was something else too. In June, we went down to Bloomington, and there was a 2-day, or Springfield, there was a 2-day conference down there. It was put on by the State Board of Elections, the Department of Homeland Security, and the State Police. And John went with us too. It was for our IT people as well as the election people. And it was election cybersecurity. And it was a training on that, and what to watch for, what to do. And they took us the first day we went through a mock election. We were all set up, and what would you do if this happened or that happened? And we've signed up, and John's getting the emails through all of these security groups and that too, and I get them, and it lets you know what all's out there and what's going on. So there's a lot of things happening, and there's been a lot of extra training and awareness made with the cybersecurity stuff. It's really kind of scary when you hear all this stuff. So we're doing what we can.
Oh, I'm sure. No, you do a great job, so. And thank you for all the detail, by the way.
Well, you're welcome.
That was very kind. Go ahead.
Can you do half-day shifts?
Well, we have, in some cases in the past, if there was something that came up that they had to go or they couldn't, but not usually, because we'd have everybody wanting to do it, and we don't have enough people now for full-day shifts, let alone trying to half-days. And that, but no, if there's someone has a medical need or something of that sort, or something, we try to accommodate that if we can.
The transition from one shift to the other shift would probably be.
It wouldn't be good.
It used to be written in the book that said you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time that I saw the election book, it said you have to be there the whole day, period.
You're supposed to be, but there have been times too when they can't. And there are some places that they'll let them, that's why you have that sheet in there to sign in and out too, if you need it.
I've never seen a sheet, not once since I did it.
That's on the back, a little bit. No, we have done it a couple times, depending on the circumstances, but we don't like to do that.
Thank you.
And we do have some judges who do not want to be paid. It's a civic duty, they feel, and they don't want to be paid.
Good for them. Put their name in the paper.
Tell them to bring 5 friends.
Yeah, if we could just get 230 of them, it would be
Yeah,
a beautiful thing.
that would be great, wouldn't it? We'd be on Easy Street then.
Historic, Barb's last budget.
My last budget.
Zero,
And I have
zero,
with
zero,
me
zero.
my successor, Nikki Meyer. We collaborated on this budget, mainly so I could show her what you're looking for.
No, what you meant to say was she's been a part of the process every year, and this is simply a smooth transition. That's what you meant to
It's gonna
say.
be a smooth transition, but she hasn't necessarily been part of this process every year.
So the treasurer was under autocratic rule, is that what you're saying?
I do have a sign on my desk that says boss lady.
That answered that question.
Go ahead.
All right, I have good news. My budget out of the general fund next year is about $8,000 less than my budget for this year. And that revolves all back to salaries. In fact, $7,868 involves salaries because the chief deputy will move up to my job. We have a 4-year employee who will, I hope, be appointed chief deputy. But she's not gonna be making the same salary as the current chief deputy. And we have a new hire who will be the senior deputy clerk, and she doesn't get a raise since she just started till May. So the savings in my budget really are all due to salary shifting. I did tweak a couple of items. I added $500 to data processing services because of increased costs for DevNet. I added a couple $100, $300 to meetings, training, and travel because I think it's important that Nikki be able to attend meetings. And I added $500 to office supplies because, gosh, those costs of pens and folders and ink cartridges never go down. So overall, that's basically everything else is pretty much the same. Now, I don't know, do you have, this is the general fund, do you have all the other funds that I was supposed to?
We're just doing the general fund for right
Oh, good, okay.
What, do you have a sneak preview there?
Yay. No, it's just really, there's 4 other funds that I was requested to budget, but there's really no way to budget for any of them, so it'll be a long explanation with no results.
Those are the special funds that she's referring to, that elected officials have control over those, and so generally they're just inserted to the budget to meet the auditory requirements.
So the barn leaves, the budget goes down.
That's what I heard.
Yep. But if you want, I can track every year since before I started, and it's pretty low.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, no doubt, and that's true.
Pretty.
Pretty.
Well, Jason motioned that we approved, I think Mike seconded it. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Always is a job well done.
Okay, everyone. So, as promised, I have copies for you of all the budget requests and the, an overall summary that Diane put together for you. And then, so everything on the top portion of the page, I'll let you guys get it, is primarily carryover from prior years. Towards the middle of the page where you can see that it kind of goes all the way across the board, those are the items that you had discussed last year or the year before and had agreed to budget over multiple years. That includes the grain elevator appraisal, the election equipment replacement, which increased slightly based off of an update from Christie, about 11,500 from where we had initially estimated. Cell doors also, and the HR payroll system. Then you also discussed last year, when Clay presented to you the equipment replacement schedule, that 205,000. And then all of the requests from there on in red are the new capital requests that came in for this year. So we would have, at the next special meeting, we would have presentation from Highway, Clay, Mr. Watson, Christie for her AptraCard track book scanning, and the Sheriff's Department for their request. I will note also in here, we've got a program request that the sheriff has submitted. It's listed in the capital, it's only so we keep it on the radar. He didn't put it in his budget, we asked him to keep it separate as a program for the committee and the board to consider separately. And it's the school resource officers, 256,489. Okay? So it wouldn't necessarily be capital, it's stuck in here right now, just so you know.
Oh.
We'll do something similar with Christie's 14,000, we'll kind of put it over to the side. So it's on our radar and we've got it in the works. But I've also included in the packet his narrative on that replacement, so you guys have it. So we'll have all those department heads come to the next special meeting. And then what we also have for you, and Diane emailed this out to you earlier today, but I've included in here kind of just to show you where the overages are. Yes, it's that one,
This is
Carolyn.
color-coded though, would you like the color
Yeah,
coded?
just, so the ones that are in red are the ones that, even if it was a minimal amount, they exceeded the budgetary allocation. So what we were thinking is that you could set a cap if it was under a certain percentage or under a certain amount. We would have those departments come in, if you wanted to, we could have anyone who exceeded, to come in and do their report, but it's 100% up to you. But we do want a little bit of a guidance so we can schedule those individuals to come in at the same time.
There's the obvious.
The sheriff, obviously was going to be on the list. Everyone else is under 1,000 or under 1%, so I wasn't sure if there was anyone else. And Shelley was obviously here, presented hers and saw her approval. And then you had already, just approved the circuit clerk.
This is 1%, for example, over the already 1.5% that was built into the increase?
Well, it was different for everyone, because it was, this is over the allocation, is what this is. And the allocations would not all be 1.5% across the board, it would be based off of what, everybody got the approved salary increase, and then, so it would be, the percentage would be different for all the departments.
Right, but the point is, this is actually not, this is not the percentage over last year, this is the percentage over the increase already.
This is the percentage over the allocation.
Yes. So supervisor assessment was 7%.
Which she explained was the triennial
Board of
assessment.
Review, 2%.
I would say, obviously, cross that one off.
Okay, the assessor.
We've already had that.
The treasurer.
And the treasurer, okay? Maintenance is 8,000, it represents 0.748 of his overall budget. Yes or no?
Yes. It's a 15% increase over the 2018 expenditures.
The 2018 expenditures for the maintenance didn't have all the salaries in there.
Yeah, and not overall, Carolyn. You're only looking at that, are you looking at that
I'm looking
line
at
item?
the 2018 estimate.
But
No, you
All
take
of
the budget versus, it's actually a reduction over 2018. If you look right over to the side, I've given you the 2018 total budget is $1,085,853, and for this year, it's $1,077,454, so it's an actual reduction.
I don't know, I just added up everything and the
If you look on the
maintenance.
side over there, I gave you the totals, if you look at
Okay,
the sheet
on
that we're
new
looking
one
at.
that we just got.
Yeah,
See.
Okay. I don't know, I just added up the numbers.
it's not based off of the estimate, that the estimate totals are not in there.
Well, I
And
just-
really, the estimates are not a good thing to go off of. We did those, I think we started those at the 4-month mark in order to do pre-planning. We haven't updated those yet. I would not use the estimate to make your determination.
spend money during the month of November. You know,
Okay, so I'm assuming we're bringing in the sheriff and the jail, correct?
Yes. Did they have any comment what's driving that? Was it-
Yeah, they do, and I'll let him explain it, but they did increase their medical contract, for with Advanced Correctional Healthcare. They now have those people, that service on staff in the jail 24/7. So that is a very large portion of this increase. The other large portion, and we've begun
Was that-
discussions.
Was that a federal requirement that had hitherto been
Something like that, something like that. And then the other portion is the overtime expenses, and Diane can attest to this as well. The overtime expenses for the jail are through the roof right now. So it is actually to the point where we may want to consider doing a couple of full-time people to do the transporting because it's gotten so high. But we said that we would talk to them about that to see if we can make sure that they can structure the schedules of those individuals, so we're not paying people to just be on staff and then still calling in people to do the transports. But for this fiscal year, I mean, if we stay on trend, we'll probably hit 260,000 in overtime. And I did bring, just in Space.
There's something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, part of that is the payouts and stuff like that.
Appeared to be.
I think last year we collected,
I didn't wanna go into deeper.
Yeah.
Too, that's pretty substantial.
so far this year, we collected 132,000 worth of reimbursements. And that's about what we've spent year-to-date on overtime.
Okay.
So,
So the reimbursements may cover it in the end.
it may cover it in the end. It does look that way, but you still could save money if, you may be able to save money if we're not paying
Well, I'm
people.
not discouraging you.
Yeah, so it's just something that we may wanna look at down the road. It's not included in their budget, but the overtime, what they really think the overtime is going to be is in there. We could do the same thing that we did last year and budget that amount in contingency and just know that if we receive the reimbursement, then you get the transfer. So that's an option too. But, so they'll come and make their presentation,
Oh, that's
okay?
So as I go through this, the sheriff and the jail are the only two that we're gonna have to make.
That's what I thought you guys would do,
Yeah.
but you guys tell me.
Oh.
Everyone
No,
else
it's
was
the-
under
where our
1%.
money's at. for the
The
most
others are
part.
already explained,
There's no
and
surprise.
approved, or there's a small,
No, right.
So just the sheriff and all capital requests
Yeah.
that have not previously been approved.
yes.
It's not with
Okay,
malicious intent,
That-
they're just educational.
sounds good. And do we wanna go ahead and set that date? Diane and I were thinking July 31st, which is a Tuesday in the evening.
So at the sheriff's meeting yesterday, and like in the sheet I was looking at that they handed out, where does that extra 349 show up? It's just.
in the landscape.
Let's see, John. I think it's on the summary page.
Yeah, I mean, there's this.
Yeah, and do you have the front page right there?
Yeah. So there's that number.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then, so that's just basically the 2.7 minus the 2.
Minus, not the budget, the allocation. It's over the allocation, not
Okay.
the budget. Uh-huh.
And then that comes into the overtime number, you say.
Yeah, if you look at the overtime line, that one is, very much so over. There's a couple other ones that have increased too, and they'll review those with you. But also the, medical,
See, I
and
zero.
all these ones
Oh,
here.
okay.
Like if you take, not secretary, start at paid holidays here, and then kind of go down and make sure that. Yeah, it is, and then all of these, so all of these are going to be there, and then, it's going to be, oh, I'm sorry, John, we're on the wrong one. No, it's okay, I'm on it.
What I'm getting at is I'm wondering if this has been explained and there's not a lot of choices to what to do we actually need a meeting about it?
I think there are some decisions to be made, and I think you should, listen to what they have to say about it, because, again, last year, when the medical is the medical, they signed a contract, it's $411,000. But the overtime, there is some question there, and so it depends on how you wanna handle it. I would recommend that you budget that somewhere, but you may wanna put it, in contingency like you did before, that way you know, if they go over, you have the money to cover it, allocated somewhere within the budget, but, you're not giving them $260,000 worth of overtime. But we did, Ginger pulled the information on the trends for the contractual buyouts and the holiday pay. I think this one's here. Sorry. But we did pull them, and they do appear to be in line. So, we would have liked to have been able to, report that they don't appear to be trending that way, and they're asking for additional money over and above. But this is in line with where they are trending. And we do get the reimbursements, but you guys should, listen to them, make their explanation, and then make your determination and decide where you wanna actually place those funds. I would place the funds somewhere, because that's really what it's looking like it's gonna be.
I guess I'd like to see a pitch for if they could hire an officer or two instead of the overtime, and what that would look like.
And they're probably, we told them the same thing, that we thought that they should start looking at that. The one thing that we were worried about was scheduling, because they always tell us that they have multiple officers on the road at the same time. And, so if you're calling people in order to do that, and it's all different times of the day, scheduling somebody from 8 to 4:30 is not gonna solve your problem, because you're still gonna be calling people in. So they have agreed to look at the scheduling and things like that. And we could do that, I mean, we could put in money that would just cover another officer, put in the staffing line item, and hope we took care of it. But, I mean, really, they have to manage, and they have to be willing to do that, because I didn't, and Diane and I agreed, we didn't wanna come here and advocate on their behalf to hire 2 new full-time people, and then they don't make the appropriate adjustments, and then it doesn't flow out the way that it should.
Is there any bundle opportunity that the police officers are talking about going for school?
They haven't been very good at utilizing the officers that they have slated for attrition thus far.
Thank you very much.
We do have 3 town contracts, so we're bringing in about $30,000 for town contracts for 3 different municipalities. They have talked about using one of the officers that are slated for attrition for the school program. But they do, I mean, I think they feel pretty strongly about, I mean, you could talk to them.
Yeah, I don't wanna talk about that right now.
Yeah.
Not without, I mean, I don't feel right talking about it without them here.
Okay, yeah, I just.
Because, I mean, we've talked to them and I mean, I don't.
That's okay.
I just didn't wanna beat a dead horse if there's no outcome from it.
As far as,
Like, if what they're suggesting is basically our only option.
no, there's options.
Okay.
There's options, and they're looking at them. We met with them on Tuesday before the committee meeting, just to kind of show them where we were at financially, and let them know that we were still working on those numbers and we're not ready to present them or anything else, but when you look at it, we're gonna be significantly over where we wanted to be in the target, and we just basically showed them where all the overages are, and it's a good portion of it's theirs. So we told them to be prepared to look at ways to reduce the requests and the allocations and help prioritize what they're looking for. And they're prepared to do that. They'll be prepared to make a presentation and to discuss those options with you at the next meeting.
Okay.
So sorry for my interruption, and you were talking, the date was?
31st.
5, 6, and 6.
You know, 5, there are still a few that work.
What time? Sorry.
6.
On the 31st?
Yep. I'm fine with
Very few, but a few.
So we gave you all the capital requests, you have everything. Sometime prior to that meeting, and it may not be very much prior to that meeting, but we will be, in the meantime, we will be working on all the transfers and the revenues and updating those, and so we hope to get the 1-page summary to you that we normally work off of, so you can see where the target is and where everything has come in at, and so you know if you want to meet your target, how much you need to reduce. Anybody have any questions for Diane or Ellie? Okay. That's it. County clerk semi-annual report.
Where's that clerk?
Did everybody bring their copies that I sent out? Otherwise, here's more paper. This report is for the 6 months from December 1st through May 31st, 2018. It's pretty much the same as always. We show a comparison for the 6 months, and then we show the 6-month comparison from this year based against a year ago at that time too. The revenue stamps, most everything was up over the last 6 months except for marriage licenses. We had 73, went down. Yeah, nobody's getting married. Well, they're not, let me rephrase that. They're getting married, but they're not, there's more fall and Christmas weddings than there are spring anymore, so there's more. Yeah. We don't have as many June brides as, well, that would be the second half, so anyway, but they come in May, so, you know, they're good for 60 days, so. But we only had 73 licenses during that time period. Where they pay $30, 5 of it goes to the state and 25 stays in our coffers and that. The transfer, the revenue stamps is the transfer tax that's paid when someone buys a home. It's like on a $100,000 home, there would be a $150 tax. It's $1 per 1,000 for the state tax and 50 cents per 1,000 for the county tax. That had gone up over the prior 6 months by almost $29,000. The next 4 items on this comparison sheet that we have, which is the recording fee, the clerk document automation fund, GIS automation, and the GIS clerk automation. Those are the base recording fees. They fluctuate with the amount of recordings that we have, the numbers in that. When someone comes in and records a land-related document, it's $41. The fee is the $32, which is comprised of those 4 items that I just explained. And then there's the $9 state rental housing fee of $9 that goes to the state of that. Those all went up over this 6 months compared to what the last 6 months were at the end of 2017. Oh, what else was there on that? Oh, the RHSPS goes the $9 to the state. That fee was almost $22,000 that was submitted to the state for the documents. And that was 2,442 documents that we had taken in that fee went to the state. Oh, the $4 death certificate, we charge $14 for the first death certificate and $6 for each additional one at the same time. There's a $4 fee, which is that death certificate fee that goes to the state, and the rest stays in our county and goes through the general fund and a couple of the other subsidiary, the automation fund, which we have. For copies of, or certified copies of your birth and death, that's $10 for the first copy and $2 for each additional of that. There's, all that money stays in the county. The $2 goes in the automation fund, and we use that to get security paper to issue certified copies on. That was mandated by the state a number of years back. The miscellaneous receipts, that had gone up a little bit over the prior 6 months, and that's certified copies, photocopies, certified copies of our vital records, as well as assumed business name fees, genealogy searches, and tax redemption fees, and notary licenses. The redemptions, which are the unpaid taxes sold at the tax sale in November, or it can be the redemptions, the revenue that comes in are the property owners have come in and they've paid that tax that was sold at the sale, plus all the penalties and the interest and the fine. That went up over the last 6 months, or 6 months prior to that, and part of that is that's the first 6 months of the year. They get tax refunds from the IRS, so if people are delinquent in their taxes, they usually come in and they'll pay using their refunds. And also tax buyers, if they've had the deeds or holding the certificates for the past 3 years, they can go for tax deed during that period too. So then the take notice is sent out, the final one is sent out to the tax property owners that are delinquent, so that they know that if they don't get their taxes paid, the unpaid ones are redeemed, then it's going to go for sale and they won't have ownership to it anymore. So altogether, state fees that we submitted was $30,223 for that time period. And let's see, oh, I know what else I was gonna say too. We're in the process of having a fee assessment review. We had a lot of paperwork we filled out, and we sent that in, and I was notified today that they'll be here next Tuesday for the on-site interview. So we're getting closer, Shelley. Because it's contingent too upon if we can go ahead, what we can increase their assessor fees, the GIS fees too, so that they can maybe do their flyovers sooner. So, that's about all I have for right now.
So I take it any notable aberrations or anything surprising?
No, I talked to the girls today, and they thought that kind of recordings, it's been kind of slow lately with recordings coming in there for a while. I know when we talked to the Lands Abstract Company, they were bringing in lots of documents, and it's kind of tapering off a little bit, so I don't know.
Rising rates will do that.
Maybe I could probably ask you later, but
Kinda
I was
slows it
just
down a little.
intrigued by this rental housing support program surcharge of $10.
Yeah, it's $9 goes to the state and $1. If you see that on the
What's it
recording,
for?
huh?
What's it for?
It was supposed to help the homeless. They were going to go ahead and have homes and stuff, but most of it's gone north of I-80. And at our conferences, there hasn't been
Which would
anyone there
make
to give us an update on it lately, but when they have, it's very vague. Nobody knows where the money's gone for sure, and the counties down south of I-80 were supposed to be getting a certain percentage of it and that too, so, but I don't know. I've never seen a report. No one knows where. I haven't researched it though.
We don't get any money that I know of.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
It was
You have homeless in
for the
this county.
homeless. Yeah, we do have some homeless here.
I mean, just the sheer scale of it, there's nothing like up there.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you, David.
Second.
You're welcome.
Second by Marty, motion approved. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, thank you.
You're welcome.
Leanne.
Well, I assume everybody had a copy of my 6-month report. Not much changes. I pulled last year's December to May report,
Man, that's good.
and the only difference I saw that was kind of interesting is our receipts for the periods. The cash checks and money orders and that have decreased. By 199,000, we are getting more online payments, credit card payments,
Cool,
paying more that way.
the culture shifts.
So, yeah, more convenient. It's, they don't have to come in and pay. Other than that, not really a whole lot. Pretty basically the same. No new fees to report. We're still.
Move to approve. I move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second by Mr. Fannin? All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, that's approved. Thank you. Diane. Kind of, sort of.
I sent everyone the finance report.
Yep.
Everybody's pretty on track.
Other than the guys that are running a little bit more on the next year,
Yeah.
they're running a little ahead of things.
Yeah. The sheriff actually is really okay. Is gonna be okay. A lot of that is retro pay.
Oh, okay.
That was a big chunk.
Okay.
That's gonna come out of there.
Well, I feel better.
That won't
Good.
come back.
Okay.
They should make it this year on their budget.
Cool.
This year's budget.
Not jail.
Not today.
That's
all. I mean, and like I said, everybody else is pretty much on track.
Okay.
Anybody who is over that, it looks like a department that might not, should be over, a lot of them have to do with, like HR, is one of them, that's not in the right spot. It's because there was a big payout for somebody who retired.
Oh, sure, I know that.
And then her last pay was bigger.
Sure.
So, the public defender, same thing. I mean, so, and nothing else that's made me panic looking at it right now.
Well, if you're not panicked.
Yeah, I know.
Good.
Keep us calm.
It take a lot to get me.
I said, keep calm.
Motion to approve the bills. Mr. Engel, second by Mr. Dodd.
Oh, wait, I did have to say something about the bills. And I forgot to say it yesterday in Sheriff Jail and License, but, yesterday, or for this committee week, we printed the probation, report, and put it with Sheriff Jail and License yesterday. And it's because he reports to Sheriff and Jail and License. And always has, his quarterly report, his budget reports to them. I don't see any reason for you guys to approve their bills or to see them.
Good God.
I mean, and if you're okay with, and I actually printed them outside, that report outside of both, so that you could see them this week if you wanted to. But then they put them with the Sheriff Jail and License yesterday and they approved them, so.
It does seem appropriate.
Good call.
Does seem appropriate.
Thank you.
Good call.
Public comment?
Did we vote?
Oh, did they do the bills?
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign, great.
Never mind.
Public comment?
Last night at the sheriff jail and license meeting, then you had gotten a request for some school resource officers. And before, later that I had asked Sheriff Childress about why, like, these towns were chosen for resource officers, I had texted then our school superintendent just to ask if we had resource officers. And she said no, and she, then in also listening to Sheriff Childress's explanation as in to why those towns were chosen, they do not have a police force in there. Well, that would include some schools within Prairie Central. Chatsworth doesn't have one, Forest doesn't have one. So I'm just saying, then our superintendent commented, I didn't know that the county was willing to help with this. And so I'm just saying, if you do this, you are opening the door to a lot of other small towns. And it seems like that's somewhat what happened out with the programs out at the Health and Education Building, that you're now trying to back up from and things. So when you're looking and considering that, that's just some food for thought that many other superintendents will probably want to get on board and have the county help out with the resource officers.
Well, and along that line, I'm familiar with Pontiac Township High School. They do have an officer there. But the city of Pontiac, he's a city of Pontiac employee, but the cost is reimbursed by the school district. It would seem to me, in general, if a school wants a police officer, like any other employee,
Look at town council.
The only thing I've seen, and I don't want to get lost in this, but the only thing I've seen on this is that thing on the Capitol. What was the sheriff saying? All I know is that figure.
Well, you should have, I imagine Alina will give you something in a packet.
It's in there.
It's in the narrative.
I mean, you mentioned the narrative to justify it.
What?
I say the narrative justifies the concept. I guess I don't argue with that. I just wonder why, if the school wants that.
Right. I mean,
He did say he was talking with them about the school paying reimbursement first. He was talking with the schools about getting it reimbursed, I don't know.
Partial.
partial, yeah. But I'm just saying, I'm sure other superintendents will get on board this gravy train.
Yeah.
So what are the two schools he's talking about?
They would be in Tri-Point and Flanagan, and then 2 schools in Streeter.
But the 2 schools in Streeter are not, he was using that as an example. They are, the 2 schools in Streeter are already using it, and they're using LaSalle, Streeter Police Department, or, so any mention of them, Woodland and that junior high, that is not included in this.
He'll be.
Well, it's $250,000, whatever it is.
He's only talking about high school.
$256,400. Yeah.
But I meant, it's only 2 schools.
So it would be that much for 2 schools?
Yes, 2 schools.
And that's every year, isn't it?
Sorry.
Yeah.
We're not.
Celebrations will be.
Cars.
That's what.
Oh, right. The cars, you wouldn't have to get every year and stuff, and
There's some
software.
of that that's.
Right.
I
think we could actually.
Salaries are like half of it.
There's a physical benefits to that.
$128,000.
Which I'm sure likely to want if they're not setting radar traps. Yeah, or running around the city of Pontiac.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, that's a tie, guys.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
It's a tie.